Hi, I'm Amy Hannon, and nothing thrills me more than people and food. I'm a preacher's wife, a mom of 3, and I own my own specialty kitchen store. I've kept an open door and a well-stocked fridge, which means I have fed a lot of mouths over the years. So welcome to my kitchen. This is Cooking Today. Hi, welcome to Cooking Today. Y'all, this is one of my favorite desserts. I know I say that, but I mean it on this one. I love bananas Foster crepes. Have you had them? First of all, we're gonna make crepes, which is an awesome kitchen skill that you all can learn how to make, and they store really great, and you can make the batter ahead of time, so it's got all kinds of great things going for it. But the bananas Foster topping that goes on them, oh my word, y'all, it's butter and brown sugar and a little rum flavoring and vanilla and all kinds of cinnamon, so good. It's really easy too. You're gonna be super surprised. We are not gonna do it with rum where we tip the pan and light it on fire and all that stuff, because we're just regular home cooks, and I want y'all to be able to make this at your house and not be intimidated. And this one is a shoo-in. You're gonna love it. So what we wanna do first is make our crepe batter, okay? So easy. A crepe is really kind of just like a skinny pancake is kind of the way that I think about it. It's a little bit especially runny, and we put it in a crepe pan. Now I have a crepe pan from Nordic Ware. It's non-stick. It is fantastic. It's a great piece to have. And if you don't have it, if you don't have a crepe pan, then you can put it in just like a regular, like really good, like non-stick skillet if you have one. But, crepe pan might be a fun little investment if you think this is going to be something that you like to make from time to time. Then you might just go ahead and get you one. It's good stuff. Okay, so let me tell you what we've got going here. We did 2 large eggs. I've got them at room temperature. I had in this one measure, I had 3/4 of a cup of whole milk and a 1/2 cup of water is our liquid. And then we're gonna do a good old splash of Unimai's vanilla in there. Maybe a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half, 2 teaspoons, whatever you like. And this is, you know what, I'm gonna put that in a minute. I'm gonna put it in at the end. It's still a little warm. This is a couple of tablespoons of unsalted melted butter, but it needs to cool just a little bit more than it is. So we'll put it in at the very end. Then I have a cup of flour, okay? Regular old all-purpose, okay? And then I'm just gonna get, oh here, I'll take this, my little tablespoon here. We want several heaping tablespoons of powdered sugar. Now some recipes will use regular, like white sugar, but I sort of feel like the texture of it changes a little bit when you've kind of got that grit. Now granted, over time when the batter sits a little bit, that grittier sugar will kind of dissolve, but I just kind of feel like there's nothing quite like this confectioner sugar. It's just so fine and so good. My friend Selena and I talked about the difference between powdered sugar and white sugar the other day when we were talking about our baking, and she actually uses it in some of her baking because it's just a finer texture. And we want these to be smooth and dreamy and perfect. So that's why we're using the powdered. Okay, I'm gonna feel this, make sure that we don't scramble our eggs. I think we're good on this. This is just a couple of tablespoons of butter that I've melted and allowed to cool for just a minute. And that's it. It's kind of like a pancake batter. Do you see that? Except a lot of times a pancake batter will have a leavener in it, like a baking soda or a baking powder or something. We didn't put a leavener in here because we wanted to stay kind of like, nice and skinny. So we have it in just our blender bowl. And I'm gonna put it over here with the lid on. And whatever your blender looks like, I'm setting mine to the pulse mode, okay? So my pulse mode turns on, so it'll pulse whatever that I, touch on the blender. We want to blend this like in a pulse mode, probably only like 10 or 15 pulses all together, okay? So I'm going to count. So here we go. was 10. Are y'all counting? 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay? We don't want to just set it on puree and just go to town on it. So we want it to be a little smooth. There may be just the tiniest bit of texture in there still, and that is what we want. Okay? So let me unplug. And I just want to look at it, and I may just have a little taste to be sure that there's just enough sweet. If there's not, I may choose to add a little bit more vanilla. Smells so good right off the bat. I may choose to add a little bit more vanilla or a tiny bit more powdered sugar. Now I'll tell you, this is not much different than if you decided to do just a regular old, like a dinner crepe, like savory crepes that had maybe some kind of good creamy cheese and spinach or some kind of sauteed shallots or some kind of good ham or bacon. So you can use this same recipe. You would just omit the powdered sugar and the vanilla in it if you decided that you wanted to make a savory crepe, which is so good for breakfast. These are so good for breakfast. Okay, let me take a little taste. Oh my goodness, it's just right. 3 heaping tablespoons of that powdered sugar and you're good to go. All right, we're gonna put this in the refrigerator and let it chill for just a few minutes or so, maybe about 30 minutes or so. When we come back, we're gonna learn how to make crepes. This is Cooking Today.
Cooking Today, sponsored by West Rock Coffee Company.
Hi, welcome back. We are just about to start making homemade crepes. We've already made our batter. We've let it chill in the refrigerator for a little while, about 30 minutes to an hour. What is so great about this is you can actually chill the batter in the refrigerator for up to 48 hours. So you can make this a couple of days before you have company or a dinner party, or just kind of keep it in the refrigerator for whenever you just kind of feel like pulling out a little bite of sweet, you know, in the next couple of days or so. But we're gonna go ahead and make ours right away. So I've got it right now in my blender bowl, but I want to be able to get a ladle really down and in there. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer this over into just a wider bowl. And I've also done it with a pour spout because it may get to the end where, you know, it's kind of hard to get your ladle down in there with all the stuff that's, you know, just that little bit that's left in the bottom. And so, you know, the pour spout will kind of give you a little bit more, you know, accessibility to the little stuff that's in the bottom. Okay, so we have our batter. I've got my crepe pan. Are y'all listening? This is super important. I've got my crepe pan preheated very low on about a 3. Now, crepe pan is a pretty thin piece. You know, it's not like our big, like Dutch ovens and things, cast iron skillets that we use a lot around here. It's very, very thin. So I really have it down on like a 2 or a 3, not very high. We don't want it to cook them to death. And then what I have here, now this is pretty non-stick, I mean overall, but what I like to do is pick it up off the heat. This is kind of your motion. Get it warm, pick it up off the heat, add your batter, set it back down, because you don't want to add the batter when the pan is directly on the heat because it'll start to cook right away. And you actually want to get it up and off of the heat to swirl the batter so that it doesn't cook the second that it's hitting the pan, and then set it back down on the heat. Does that make sense? Because if it were on the heat and you tried to swirl it and it was too hot, it's gonna cook and you aren't even gonna have time to swirl. And I'll tell you, the first crepe is always the sacrificial lamb. It just is. It's the sacrificial lamb. You may mess one up. I always seem to throw out the first one, or it's a miracle if it ever works out right. It's kind of like that very first pancake that you always make. You know how it's just not quite right and you have to kind of throw it out because, you know, you're kind of figuring out your heat and your way. So we're going to go ahead and get the sacrificial one out of the way. And if it works, then woohoo. But if it doesn't, then we'll just, you know, pinch it and eat it. And it's still edible. It just might not have the color that we want. So what I've got, I'm letting my pan cool just a second. I've gone ahead and taken a little paper towel with the little tiniest bit of vegetable oil, and I have rubbed it on. We don't want it to be in there. Does that make sense? We don't want it to fry, but we want the tiniest little coating, okay? Ready? I have a ladle, and I'm going to ladle in. Ready? Sacrificial, here we go. It might work. Wouldn't that be great? Okay, see, I'm swirling to get to the edge, and then we set it down on the heat. Does that make sense? So by giving it the little swirl, we've gotten it to all of the corners. Now what we're going to do on this heat is we're just going to watch this crepe. And what you're going to see is that very outside rim of it starts to get a little bit drier and a little bit more papery, okay? And it will actually start to turn a tiny, tiny, tiny bit brownish and will lift away from the pan a little bit. So you can take, I like to take my, my metal fish turner, my favorite utensil in the world, and I just kind of watch and lift. And it's not quite ready yet, so I'm just going to wait. And I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to mess with it until I can see that I can easily take my little corner and kind of drag it around the outside and watch it sort of lift away. So you have to really watch these, okay? And when it's done, some people like to flip theirs and cook them on both sides. I really don't. I like mine to be a little bit more kind of moist and a little bit eggy and kind of cakier. I really love it that way. So I don't flip it and cook it on both sides. I just cook it on one side and then fold it. So let's check and see. Yeah, see how we're lifting away a little bit better? Okay, I'm going to see how we do. And if this one doesn't work, we're going to do a different one in our next segment. Okie doke, here we go. And I like to take my fingers and get in there. There we go. Okie doke, ready y'all? I like to go ahead and fold it in half. It's hot. There we go, fold it in half. And then watch this, fold it in half again in the skillet. Does that make sense? And then remove it and put it on our plate. Okay, and see that little tiny bit of brown color? We want just that little bit. We don't want them to be brown where they won't fold and be nice and tender and pliable. So we folded it in the pan, folded it again, and put it on a plate. It's piping hot. It smells like vanilla delicious cake, y'all. We're gonna finish our batter. We're gonna put it in our pan that we've lifted up and off of the heat, swirl it, set it back down, watch for it to dry out a little bit, and then fold it and fold it. We're gonna finish with our batter. When we come back, we're gonna make the Banana Foster's topping, and so good you're not gonna believe it. This is Cooking Today.
Iced tea, sponsored by Lipton.
Hi, we're making Bananas Foster crepes today. We have just finished our crepes. We've made about 4 today for the sake of time. The recipe actually makes probably 6 or 7 crepes. You can serve them individually. You don't have to do sets of crepes. You can just do one, but who wants just one crepe? We want 2 crepes, don't we? Loaded down with all this good topping that we're about to put on. I do anyway. So we've made these really pretty plates of our crepes in our triangles. You know how I showed you to fold it over in half and then to fold it back over in a little quarter. And then we've made them on these pretty layers on our dessert plates. So the good stuff, ready? I have about a half a stick of butter in my brazier, and it is melting away. And we want to add 2/3 of a cup of dark brown sugar. And you want the dark because the dark has more molasses in it. It's just richer altogether. And so we want to have a good amount of the brown sugar in there. And we're going to let this melt down. Y'all, this goes so fast, this topping. And you know what I love about Bananas Foster crepes is bananas, you can get them year round, especially right here in Arkansas. I mean, pretty much anywhere, but you can get them year round. And what's kind of hard sometimes is seasonal fruit, and maybe you can't get berries at a certain time of year, and you can't get peaches at a certain time of year, and you can't get rhubarb at a certain time of year. You can always get bananas, and you can always get apples. You know how I feel about apples with our Skillet Apple Crisp. It's another one you can make year round, and this is another one of those. Okay, so what we've got going is our butter melting. Our brown sugar is going to kind of clump a little bit as it starts to mix in with the butter. And pretty quickly, we want to go ahead and add some more of our liquid in there so that the brown sugar has more liquid to kind of melt down into. I'm not measuring, I'm just eyeballing. But I'm going to do a couple of hefty teaspoons of vanilla. The vanilla is just delicious in there. So you can just go for it. Then I'm going to juice an entire lemon. And I've got a pretty good sized one right here, but I'm gonna go ahead and juice a lemon in there. I'm gonna get my little tool. Make it easy on us. Oh yes. And I have got my heat turned down now a little bit to a low, low, low simmer because we don't want it to just burn up. But oh my word, already butter, brown sugar, vanilla in there. You can't beat that. Okay, so I'm gonna juice this big boy. That's a huge lemon, y'all. Okay. Yes, and get it all in there. We are gonna substitute the rum. And generally you would put a couple of tablespoons of real rum in this. And since we're not, some people even do like a 1/4 cup or more. Since we're not doing the rum, we're adding in other liquid to kind of make up for it. Okay? So there's the lemon. And then just to get a little bit of the rum flavor, we're gonna do a rum extract. Rum extract is so strong. So you wanna be super duper duper reserved with it. So I just did 1 teaspoon. And then for just a little extra liquid, I'm gonna add in just a couple of tablespoons of water. Okay. 1, 2, and then we wanna let that just come to barely a simmer, just a little bitty simmer like it's doing right now, and make sure that it gets nice and dissolved, okay? Nice and dissolved, nice and dissolved. And then we're gonna bring that up to just enough of a simmer. We're gonna add a little bit of cream and our bananas. And this is so easy. We're just gonna take the ends off of our bananas, cut them in half, and then cut them in half again. So you kind of have like little quarters, okay? Just take them right out and kind of remove the strings if you want to. We don't love the strings, do we? And I can hear, I've got my ear to my skillet because you know you always want to be paying attention. You don't want to ever let anything go without listening. So I cut those in half and then I'm just cutting them again. Okay, so they're kind of edible slices and they're just pretty this way. If you would like to slice these like into like, you know, little kind of thick discs, then you certainly can do it that way. I've done it that way. These are just a little bit prettier. So I'm gonna cut these in half, quarter them, and then we're gonna put them in that sauce and let them simmer just for a minute or so, just until they heat through. We don't want them to get mushy, so you don't wanna walk away from them, okay? Y'all should smell it in here. Holy smokes. Okay, watch this, ready? Turn my heat down a little bit, and I'm just gonna lay them right in the sauce. And then we're gonna ladle the sauce up and over and onto these bananas. So we're gonna get them laying in there, ladle the sauce up and over. At the very end, splash it with cream, a few walnuts, chopped pecans, whatever nut you like, and serve them over our beautiful crepes. Okay, we're gonna let these simmer and get warmed through. We'll plate it up when we come back. This is Cooking Today. Hi, it smells like heaven in here. We have wrapped up Bananas Foster Crepes, a good old-fashioned 1950s dessert that came from the deep south way down there in Louisiana. They know how to do it, don't they? We have got, let me get my rag over here. Okay, so we've got our bananas that have cooked just a little bit. They've barely started to soften, which is what we want. We don't want it to get so mushy that we can't eat them. We don't want them to change the texture too much, but you can see they start to kind of soften and get yummy. And I have turned my flame off. I added a little tiny splash of cream at the end, and I just kind of turned those and ladled them a little bit. And now, just before we serve them, I'm gonna sprinkle in just a handful of chopped pecans and a little sprinkle of good cinnamon. Oh my gosh, y'all. Look at this. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay, I'm gonna ladle these out here, spoon out these bananas, and then ladle a little of this yummy, yummy sauce on top. You can smell the butter, you can smell that cinnamon, the lemon juice, y'all. What that does is so good. Just brightens it up a little bit. And then look here. Vanilla bean ice cream. There's nothing like it. You want to serve this right away because this is going to melt like crazy and it is going to be like heaven. And you're just going to be so tickled that you learned how to make this and that you get to serve it to your people. I hope you'll try it at home. You're going to love it. This is Cooking Today.
Cooking Today, sponsored by West Rock Coffee Company. Kitchenware is provided by Una Mays. Groceries provided by Harps, Hometown Fresh.